Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 13th and tonight's movie is His House. This is a 2020 horror movie directed by Remy Weeks about two asylum seekers from Africa taking refuge in the UK, and the house that they live in now is haunted. The husband and wife have to deal not only with adjusting to a new place and the fact that their house is haunted, but the situation sort of drives a wedge between the two of them as well. This is a lot like Get Out, when even just from watching the trailer, there is a very clear underlying social commentary in this movie. I assume there's going to be not just metaphorical, but also probably direct representations of the prejudice that asylum seekers and immigrants face. I'm interested to see how this movie is going to use the haunted house to expand upon that theme, and it was very interesting to see the disagreements forming between the husband and wife. I'm gonna go check it out, and I'll tell you what I think of it. The first thing I want to do is correct myself when I said that this movie seems to mostly be about xenophobia. That was a mischaracterization brought on by both what I was expecting and also the trailer. Xenophobia is a part of this movie, definitely, but it's not really about that. More than anything, His House is about survivor's guilt. If you didn't know, survivor's guilt is the guilt or the idea that someone has done something wrong by making it out of a situation that other people didn't. One of the first things they show is the fact that not everybody in the South Sudanese place that they came from were able to make it out alive. And not only were there people dying in the war zone that was that village, there were people dying on the boat that was transporting them out. So, yes, His House is more about survivor's guilt than it is xenophobia, but the survivor's guilt doesn't really come up until the second half of the movie. And I'm saying this all now to sort of give context to the fact that this movie is, viscerally sad and dark and scary. It's powerful, and I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. We are on a roll, 3 in a row. The two main characters in this movie are a couple named Ball and Real. They start out with a very strong relationship, but as the movie goes on, their different worldviews really start clashing and their relationship starts to deteriorate. The main point of contention is that Ball wants to assimilate and adapt because even though their situation in the UK is not ideal, it's better than where they started, and he doesn't want to bite the hand that feeds him. Real, on the other hand, is very resistant to that idea. She doesn't see the point in throwing away the culture that is such an integral part of who she is for the sake of impressing or being good for people who don't even care about her anyway. She came from a place where you were either in one group or the other, and those two groups were fighting to the death, and she survived by not belonging anywhere. So she kind of sees this new location as just not belonging in a place where the people don't like her instead of not belonging in a place where she still has friends. The movie sort of frames both of these attitudes as not right, but also the situation is not right in the first place. The horror in this movie is done very well. It's sort of like Amityville or Girl on the Third Floor, where it almost feels like the house itself is this evil creature. One of the main walls of the house has a bunch of peeling wallpaper and holes in the wall, and you see a lot of faces and eyes peeking through those holes in the wall. The horror in the movie also keeps flashing back in ways that are both subtle sometimes and not subtle other times to the moment on the boat where they lost their daughter. Like, there was a rope in the wall and Bull kept pulling it, and then suddenly it was covered in seaweed like it was a rope on a boat going in the ocean. His House is a powerful movie because it was very interesting the perspective that it provided. Most of the things it presented could be viewed on two levels. One is just on its face, like a horror movie, this house is haunted, and then underneath that there was a social or psychological issue being analyzed. It's sort of like Hereditary or Midsommar in the fact that there's sort of a standard horror movie and a social drama juxtaposed together, and instead of detracting from both, they each augment each other and work together. I would recommend it. I thought this movie was so well done. And now I want to talk about a few spoilers. One thing I liked about this movie is that it started out with the audience thinking, or at least me thinking it was going to go one way, and then it slowly reveals to be something else. It started out feeling like a very standard, very westernized depiction of a haunted house movie. family moves to house, house is haunted. But this is a case where it's more as if they brought the haunting with them to this location. They use the term like witch, night witch, they also call it a beast, but it's sort of like this spirit that latched onto them and it wants a debt from them. And while it's not clear right away what the debt is, it tells them that if they can pay that debt, they will get their daughter back. Bull responds to this by being very territorial, like, this is my house, we are going to be here now, this is our new home, and I'm not giving it up for anything. To the point where he, like, seals all the exits and traps his wife in this house. And the last part of this movie is a lot of explanation and backstory as to the guilt that both of them feel. Rial survived a massacre that killed all her friends by hiding, and she feels survivor's guilt over that. And much worse than that, they were able to get on a bus that was taking them out. When the bus said, "We are only letting people with children on board," it turns out that their daughter was not even their daughter at all, just some random young woman, and Bull, like, grabbed her and said, "This is our daughter, let us on board." And as they were getting away, they saw the girl's real mom get left behind. And they both feel really guilty about the fact that that young woman was among the casualties on the boat and they couldn't save her. And the debt that the Night Witch in their house was asking for was for Bull to sacrifice his own life, and in return, they will get the life of that young woman back, and they'll actually be able to raise her as their daughter in the UK. It starts out with Bull accepting this, willingly giving himself up to the Night Witch. And it's Rial who makes the decision to get rid of the Night Witch by, like, slitting its throat with a knife and deciding that they need to live on in the UK, all their guilt and all the ghosts from the past, both metaphorically and literally living with them as well. All around, this movie was expertly made. The writing, the acting, the directing, it was all phenomenal. I debated giving this movie a 10 out of 10, but I decided against it because when I look back at all the other movies I've given 10 out of 10 to for Horror Nights, those are all ones that I really had fun watching. I didn't really have that much fun watching this movie because it was really intense. Still, it was great, and I am very interested of what Remy Weeks makes in the future, because this was his, like, feature debut, and he knocked it out of the park. If you really like the Ari Aster approach to horror movies, where it's like a combination of a regular social drama and a really, really scary horror movie at the same time, I would check this out because I think that his house is sort of in that vein. Definite thumbs up. Alright, I'll see you tomorrow.